All right, 6 p.m. We'll call the meeting to order. Clerk, may I have a roll call and an establishment of quorum, please?
Cindy Byteam, Mary Beth Shaw, Barb Stotts,
Here.
Mike Wagner,
Here.
Matt Crowe,
Here.
Dylan Helmenstein.
Here.
I'm here as well.
All right, we have proof of posting. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. Mary Beth?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
Dylan?
Yep.
Angie?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. Do I have a motion to approve the Board of Education meeting minutes of February 26, 2024?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion on those? Hearing done. Mary Beth?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
Dylan?
Yes.
Angie?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. Do I have a motion to approve the payroll accruals and disbursements?
So moved. Second.
Any questions on what's attached there?
I do. I have one question. I see a lot of open PO. What does that mean, or what's the reason for that?
That's kind of how they put in the requisition to kind of say, I'm gonna spend down my basically supply balance or kind of the materials they might need kind of to finish out the rest of the year. But because we kind of have a PO deadline, and it might be from Amazon, Walmart, or the credit card, it's just kind of spending down that balance on supplies they know they'll need, but just potentially not the vendor. All budgeted for, just a matter of kind of.
No, I
closing out that,
I see more this time than typical. That's why I was just curious.
which is standard for this time of year based on kind of just closing those POs out, because Greg and I are really holding strict to that here's when you have to get your POs in by, otherwise we're saying you can't have that money anymore. I'm gonna roll it into the general. If that makes sense.
Yep.
Any other questions? Okay, hearing none. Mary Beth?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
Dylan?
Yep.
Angie?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. No public input tonight, so we'll move on to reports. I just wanted to give a shout out to our band and choir folks. I had the honor of volunteering at our solo ensemble conference event a couple weeks ago now. Dylan was there as well. And a shout out to all the volunteers who, a huge chunk of them were community members that don't have children in the district, so those things can't happen without our slate of volunteers, but also just to give a kudos to our students who participated, and a great opportunity for them to build some character and face the fears of standing in front of 20 people in a room and getting judged on their talents. I also want to bring up, in the future, hoping to establish a Vanguard Spotlight Award. I guess just given in the world of never-ending negativity, it would surely be nice to give praise to some of the things going on in the schools that our wonderful staff members are doing on a daily basis. And so we'll have this Spotlight Award up for nomination from anybody in the community, parents, students. They'll be able to nominate a staff member, and then hopefully we get that going, and probably once a month we'll have at one of our meetings an award to give out and a good story to share. So.
Will there be something in the paper about that?
Yes, yes. I made sure Joe knows it's coming too. So yeah, that'll be a great thing to share the positive. And that's all I have tonight. So we'll move into administrator reports. Dale?
Okay.
Thank you.
Pretty heavy, just Act 20. I wanted to update the board on that. Bev, do you want to click on my report so they can see maybe? Well, I'll start. There's a lot of components to it, and so I tried to outline it, just the highlights that may pertain to you as a board. But all these things we're aware of, we're on top of. I'll start out with just the approved resource list, or the curricular list. Interesting, DPI had originally recommended 11 different programs. The Joint Finance Committee today narrowed it to 4. So that first paragraph in there, and benchmark advance is not part of the 4. So I got an email late this afternoon. Now, what does that mean? We don't have to make any adjustments. Really what that means is districts that need to purchase new curriculum, there's a reimbursement factor. And so they will only get reimbursed from the state if they pick one of the four. So Benchmark Advance hits all the criteria with the science of reading, fills all the Act 20 criteria, so we're okay. But that was a little bit of a twist thrown at us today, which surprised us to some extent. So, and there's a lot of that at the state level. There's a lot of back and forth. Even the other highlight here, I'll point out with the reading readiness screener. That's a little tricky as well. Districts are going to be required to administer a reading readiness screener for all students, grades K through 3. And that's supposed to happen in the fall. We're not going to learn what that screener is until July 15th was the magic date. So what's interesting about that is, school districts, we're in the process of planning next year's budget. So we purchased iReady, we have some other screeners that we purchased, we get under contract with. We're gonna move forward with that, but we may get caught off guard. Our screener that we currently use may not be the one that the state chooses. And so we may have to do something additional there. There is a reimbursement there for the state, for the screener. And that's already in place. That's been in place for years. Actually, I just submitted ours for this school year last week, I think it was. So that's interesting. Just talking to some of the reps too, the reps of the different programs, they're curious as well because many school districts, they have to provide training. And so getting chosen in July, how are these companies going to get their trainers out and train all the school districts? So they're trying to push that earlier. But part of that as well is they're trying to, I'll say that the different groups in the state are trying to make that until the following school year. So where the screener doesn't take place until, what would it be, the 24, 25? No, it'd be 25, 26 school year. But I don't see that happening. I think the screener will happen, and we have to get it within the first 45 days of the school year. So. And then after the screener, the next big thing there is students scoring below the 25th percentile will be given the assessment. And then those who score below the 25th percentile on the reading screener will have to put a reading plan in place. So many of our elementary kids, we have individual plans in place, that sort of thing. For us, and we're not exactly sure how the state intends this to happen, but it's likely the reading plan, and I put it in the report, a reading plan will follow students beyond 3rd grade. So until they score above the 25th percentile. And so for our middle school kids, that'll be on the forward exam. So intervention or some type of reading plan will have to follow kids. And so that'll impact our middle school staff to some extent. And I would anticipate our middle school teachers, particularly the special ed teachers at the middle school level, will need some additional training as part of this to incorporate those reading plans. So yet to be determined, but those are all things. 3rd grade promotion, did you notice that on there? DPI, again, they're developing a model policy. We'll get that. That's one of those things, right now there's a policy on the books for 4th and 8th grade. So, after, there is a policy with promotion after 4th grade and after 8th grade. So we have that now. I would guess it's going to be similar, so it's not going to be a big impact. Originally, people panicked. They thought, oh my goodness, we're going to have 15-year-olds in 3rd grade. I don't see that happening, and the state's been pretty good in the past about allowing decisions and policies on promotion to be made at the local level. So we'll see how that plays out. And once I see a copy, I'll share it with you, for sure. For us, a lot of testing, or a lot of professional development. This is one of those unfunded mandates. I'll just say that out loud. We're going to have to, minimum have over 20 teachers have the training. And so it is one of those programs, I'll approximate, it's about $1,000 a person, to pay for the training and then the PD time that's going to take place. And the training takes about 40 hours per person to make that Still, and we're working on having an updated literacy plan and updating our tiered support plan as well. So we're working on all those things. All those things have to be posted by the start of next school year, so we're in good shape for that. Skipped around a little bit there, but does anyone have any questions? Just wanted to keep you in the loop on what's happening with Act 20.
I have questions. So for 25th percentile, does that mean our student population or the state?
It's the, no, not our population, it's the benchmark. So
Okay.
that's what they're looking at.
I'm sorry, I don't understand.
So there's a cut score, and if you're below the cut score, then you need remediation.
But when it's continuing past third grade and you still have a plan until you get above the 25th percentile of the old benchmark in third grade, or?
It'll, the
It'll-
grade level benchmark.
Oh, I see, okay.
So they have to, you want to score above the 25th percentile at the grade level benchmark.
I see, okay. How much time? I mean, you said 48 hours?
40 hours for the letters training, approximately, depending on the person, it might be 60 hours.
Right. Across 20 teachers? At least?
At least, yeah. We have 3 teachers that have already done the training. 1 teacher's finishing up, so we'll have 4 done here by the end of the month. And then we just signed up 18 teachers for the online piece moving forward. And so, and that's just the required teachers. So our 4th and 5th grade teachers aren't part of that group. They will want to have the training as well. And then, Kelly and I in our discussions, moving up, maybe even our special ed teachers at the middle school level might be good practice to have them understand what the training's all about as well.
I have one more follow-up. So we won't learn until July for the screener. And then we really have to get it down, so we're expecting staff to come in earlier because of
Depends
that?
on what it is.
Okay.
Just depends on what it is. It may be one, and, there's a short list of what we anticipate they would be. We don't anticipate any big surprises there. And they may pick one of the screeners that we're already using. So I'm not overly concerned about that at the elementary level. That'll be an adjustment that we can pivot pretty quick on that one.
And the PD on there, is it individualized where they
It
can do it
is,
when it fits
we
in?
actually chose an online version.
Yeah.
The 4 people that were trained, we actually worked through CISA 5, so it was a combination of in-person and online. And the online part is very doable. But we have our 4 people trained, so we do plan to offer some after-school times where the teachers can come and the 4 people that have already had the training and have their certificates can assist and help. I would anticipate that happening. They're good about working together, so I can see some small groups getting together after school to put the training on. And we do intend to use Curriculum Week in June for part of that. Social studies is our curriculum, and particularly at the elementary level, that's not heavy on training for us at the elementary level, so we can use that time that's already built in to finish up our letters training.
So it's an unfunded mandate from the state to the school district. Is this type of PD and training also expected from teachers without additional support?
Yeah,
Just thinking budget implications.
Once they get the training done, I worked with Derek and everyone, and teachers will actually get a $750 stipend. Once they turn in the certificate, because they have to have it. And yeah, there's no time to do it during their normal contracted hours.
Right.
So it'll be all outside the time.
But the short answer is yes. It's unfunded.
Right, right.
Yep.
Any more questions for Dale?
Thank
I'll
you.
keep you updated,
Yeah.
as I learn more, and I'll keep you updated as we progress through the process, and if there's anything.
Anything else that comes up?
We're very fortunate, the work we've done in the past and, our school improvement planning, a lot of the training is phonics-based. And you think of our past school improvement plannings that we did at Black Earth Elementary, a lot of it was phonics-based, and particularly our kindergarten and first grade teachers are really good at that piece. And that's part of our current curriculum, so it's not new information for our staff. We're just gonna hone our skills and get better at it.
I spent a lot of time just kind of continuing to highlight the very unique needs of the populations within student services and special education. Very fun to see some of the creative ways that our staff members are trying to reach students, especially in those trips, those service animals, lots of different options like that. Then also our school psychologist shared what she's been up to with her interns. That's building more social emotional learning competencies throughout the building and helping us really get that student voice. And then that other piece is QPR also brings a lot of student voice because we're wanting to have our high school students especially trained in how to recognize early warning signs and be proactive and ready to address that when we see it with their peers. Finally, I know everyone is very excited, like the summer school course catalog, we're down to a week, so I know that's a big one for most of the community. We'll get to highlight those courses next Monday.
Awesome. Any questions for Kelly? All right, thank you.
Tomorrow's the ACT plus writing. I feel like I was saying this for 6 weeks, but we still had people calling today saying, when's that test? Okay. Waiting. So tomorrow we are testing all juniors. We will only have juniors in the building, and we have the rest of our students home learning online, so that we can provide the best possible test environment for our kids. So that's the big thing this week. We are also working on planning for next year. So we have students have registered for classes for next year. We went to an online registration system and it has worked wonderfully. So we are already sectioning kids into classes for next year. So it's been busy that way. And we potentially, in this project, have 22 students looking at youth apprenticeship.
Wow.
So we had 0 students in youth apprenticeship when I got here.
Yeah.
So we have grown to 22. So,
Outstanding.
yeah, it is. And we have limited, just a straight work experience type program, because we know kids get, have better results through the apprenticeship, and they have better relationships, mentorships with their employer. And it leads to better post-secondary employment and better success within their post-secondary education too. So we've been changing our focus to push more students into the apprenticeship instead of just a work experience. So I think that's a positive thing. The other thing that has come out from the state is the new career readiness standards. And we are ahead of the game. Number 2 on the list is critical thinking. That's the skill that we want every kid to graduate from high school with, and that aligns totally with our school improvement plan and with our implementation of question exploration routine this year. So we have already started building on that. So lots of great things happening within student services in particular. I highlighted that both in the March newsletter and in my update. Debbie Schmidt and Andy Palstill have been a blessing and a revitalization of the student services department, particularly with school counseling. So.
What kind of requirements go into an employer hosting a youth apprentice? Like, is that something that there's some?
Yep, so we work with the Dane County School to Career Consortium, and Josh Fassel is the director, and he works with employers to go through the paperwork and onboard them into the process, and then he facilitates typically the meeting between the youth apprentice and the employer, and they go through the contract together and stuff.
So it's something we could market to
Yes.
locally.
Yes, so like on, last week on the 6th, all students who were interested in being youth apprentices attended an online information session, and they were, the application was explained and how do you do these things. But I sent out a notice to just 6/12 that this was available, and I had 2 employers in the community who contacted me to say, well, we would like to have a youth apprentice. How do we do this? So I connected them with Josh.
Awesome.
So, yep.
And the 22 students are not all seniors, or are they?
Mostly seniors, but we have captured a few juniors, and so we're trying to develop that strand where kids start earlier and do the 2-year instead of just the
Yeah.
1-year youth apprentice.
Because I mean, how many students are in the graduating class this year?
This year, we have 8 youth apprentices, and there's only like 44 kids in this graduating.
I mean, I was gonna say, so by the time you're getting even over 10 and 20, it's making up a large portion
Yeah,
of the
so like,
student
if
classes.
we end up with 20, that's about a third of next year's
Right.
graduating class.
Yeah.
That's going to be doing a formal youth apprenticeship, yeah, it's huge. And it just goes to show that, you know, we really are working on making sure that they have the opportunities here and connected to their learning so that when they leave us, they have a lot more choices. And so we've been working hard on that, and I think it's starting to come to fruition.
It's on top of the AP courses they're taking, I mean,
Yep,
incredible.
yep, so.
Applause for that, that's awesome.
Also, I just wanted to talk about the modernization that y'all did with the course registration. I'm sure that was difficult, but to just see it work so well in
Yeah.
a short amount of time that they've been here, phenomenal stuff.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
Just
and
every minute.
neither one of them had ever done it before. I'm like, what's the worst that can happen?
yeah, right. We already knew it paid stuff.
So, it'll be fine.
And
Kind
it
of my
was.
motto for the year. It'll be fine. So,
And it was.
it worked, so.
Yeah. That's great. Any other questions?
When I was in school, I had friends that did the work release because they went and worked on their family's farm. Is that still allowed?
Yeah, they can still, and they can do youth apprenticeship, actually.
Oh,
Agriculture, yep,
with their family farm?
if their family farm.
Oh, well, then why would you do that?
Well, yes.
But the families.
Oh.
So it's
Yeah.
not okay.
Need to pay.
Right.
Yeah, you have to pay. So like they have to actually get, yeah, they have to be a,
True.
deduction, so they have to come out. But I would
Get dinner every night.
Well, all right.
Yes,
That is true.
that's true. But I would also think, because, you know, my father ran his own business, so I was his employee too.
Yeah.
There's tax
Oh,
advantages
yeah.
to employing your own children, so.
Yes, there is.
Yeah,
No more California trips?
no,
No? Okay. Because
yeah.
you know, when you look at those senior profiles, what they all, that
I know.
California
Yeah.
trip, right?
Yeah, yeah, I know.
Never say never.
Well, no, but.
Right.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks, Liz.
Yep.
Derek, Greg?
We kind of provided the February year-to-date compared to budget. Everything seems to be kind of coming in line on the revenue side, budget side, or the expenditure side. We're kind of digging deeper into each of kind of the specific areas. We don't want to give any preliminary numbers yet, but we hope to have some good developments on the salary and benefits side. And we also did a kind of a deeper dive into the maintenance area, and with the, let's just say, abnormally warm winter, there's been some cost savings on utilities, and we've kind of went over a list of spring projects with Bill that will kind of already be within his budget kind of area amount, and we'll be kind of bringing those in the April meeting for approval, but they're kind of in his budget, don't need additional budget approval, but we're gonna kind of bring those, but we're kind of telling him to kind of get them on the schedule so we can get the slots filled, because contractors are kind of filling up at this point in time and saying, hey, do you want to do this or not? So we're kind of, just as a forewarning, that'll be coming in the April meeting if we don't have a March 25th meeting. Not foreshadowing anything.
You said it, now it's done.
And then kind of other areas, we kind of have Jordan here, who will kind of, on the agenda, we'll be talking about the defeasance, kind of finalizing that. We're also kind of continuing to work on referendum questions, support, and all that. That is winding down here and coming very soon. And then we're also kind of going through information requests for transportation and what we need to kind of send out that RFP and get those back so we can review those and make the best decision for the district.
Is that contract's up June-ish?
Yep, June 30th, and we're hoping to send that out yet this week and get those back early April. for review.
One thing I would just add, with the end of the year projects that Bill is looking at doing, and Craig will remember the days where you worked really hard January through February to get the projects on the book, because on June 30th, you would close the books, and anything that was not paid for or spent by the end of June 30th would get pushed over into the 24-25 school year, and that had a significant impact on whether you were going to get aided on that the following year. Now with Fund 46, a little bit of that pressure has been taken off, so it's not as crucial to get that work done as it has been in the past. And again, that's only because we're able to really make that expenditure by putting that in Fund 46, because we won't get aided on it again when we spend it. It'll just be that one time over. So that's helpful, but our goal still is to try to get as much done, and other purchases if possible, by June 30th, so that they can be booked into this current year, because auditors don't like to see you spending that money on June 30th. They like to see that money spent prior to that, so.
Questions? I just want to extend a huge thank you again. They've been a tremendous help in answering so many questions, and readily available with answers when the questions keep coming out of nowhere. So thank you again for your time and efforts, and we're in the home stretch, so vote.
Go vote.
Go vote. You're up.
Updated on our open positions, we have received a lot of applicants for our dean position, 22, and our activities athletic director position, also 22. We will be, our plan was to interview this week, and we just been busy. So we are have our first round of interviews next week. Actually, Bev will be making those contacts tomorrow morning. We selected candidates, and we'll be in the process of finalizing the interviewing committees, and then it'll be a 2-round process. Barb will be in the first round, and then I'll look for a board member to be in the second round as well. And there will be staff, coaches, parents, students involved. And we'll continue to update you on that. Then we hit spring break, and so the final won't be until after spring break. We haven't set that date. We wanted to get through the first round first. Of both those positions, depending on how many people come back, will depend on, what that date would look like, whether it's going to be 1 day or 2 days. And then the elementary position, as you recall, they'll be in the curriculum position. That'll be closing at the end of the week. And we have a number of applicants for that position as well. And those dates, we haven't set in stone yet, but we will do that prior to the end of the week, so we can, inform people. But that's obviously going to get a kickback after spring break. We also have a family and consumer ed position posted, student services. Kelly, did we post that?
Not yet, but we will very soon.
That and the nursing position. Those are,
Kindergarten.
we have a kindergarten position as well.
We'll interview early April
Yeah.
for that.
So Katie's not coming back?
That's still undetermined yet. Yeah, we have 2 part-time people. Ideally, we'd like to have 1 full-time person in-house. And so we're still working on what that might look like. With nursing and student services as well, we put part-time or full-time, because we just don't know in the area of counseling, social work, or ideally if we could get another school psychologist. Those are all very difficult positions to fill. So we open it up for all of the above to see what kind of candidates we get, and then determine what FTE that's going to be, because when you've got a limited number of qualified candidates, the candidates have a little bit of wiggle negotiating power in terms of their working schedule, because there are that many openings in those specialized areas. But I'm optimistic we'll put it together, we'll be fine in those areas.
Craig will have food service, we have 2 positions in food service that will be open.
Thank you, and one of the positions is a position that's been open for all year. So 2 food positions, we had a recent resignation. But again, we've had an open food service all year long. And it's been very challenging to make shift that one. And we've had some people that either stepped up or were voluntold. We had to do a little bit of shuffling, and hopefully we'll have all those positions filled next year. The solar update. We're still waiting on some D1 line panels, whatever that is. But Burke ordered these in September, and they had a 20-week window for delivery, and they're late, and now apparently in June. And as he stated, this is one part of the COVID problem that we just haven't gotten back up to speed in terms of supply. It's a supply issue. So hopefully that comes in June, and then we're still waiting on Vanguard Electric Utilities and Nichols to get the concrete slab poured. Now, in everyone's defense here, I don't know if I've seen a concrete truck out yet, even with the early spring. So, I mean, I'm assuming, because you've got...
They poured a foundation next door to us.
Yeah, they're.
Yeah.
Like I said, the concrete's
No excuse.
ready to go, so we're waiting on a concrete slab. And then the electrical has. So hopefully, this will be up and running in June. But I said to somebody the other day, and I kind of was embarrassed after I said it. I said, my gosh, I saw the solar panels. And somebody said, well, they've been up there for like months.
Mhm.
Well, I could see it in the sky, but now you can actually see the exterior of them. So against the bright sky, they stick right out. And it looks cool. Not that we're putting it up because it looks cool, but bottom line is it's close to being complete. But Burke was going to get a hold of the utility company, Nichols, to shake that tree up because I wanted some updates for tonight. So it's very, very close to being complete. Questions?
So on the dean and athletic activities director position, I may have missed it in the past, but did we decide if that was going to be a district-wide position for activities director, or did the administration come to a decision on that?
When I took the job descriptions from the assistant principal / athletic director, and simply divide, because it was one job description, but they had a lot of the same headings on them. And then I just literally split them. And that really is a place to start, knowing that they're going to both grow and morph into a position. They're new. And I have several job descriptions from other school districts. And, the positions are just very different and unique to each school. And we'll have to determine what we want that to look like here. But that has not been determined because it was intended on being, in my point, part of the secondary position. But then the issue of elementary came up at a meeting, I can't remember, I think at this table, somebody brought it up. That has not been finalized. I think, in part, we're also have some positions in the elementary, the student services position. What does that look like? Right now, it's part-time. Does it continue to be part-time? Does it continue to be full-time? Because we have somebody that's going to apply. I think all of that is still hanging out there. That said, that will have to be determined. But the answer to that is we really haven't. I'm drawing the assumption it's a secondary position.
Is it a variety of different backgrounds that have applied for the dean of students?
I would say yes. Most are in education. Most are in education. Teachers of various sorts. A lot of coaching. A lot of people with fire and health backgrounds. A lot of people with fire certainly the activities position, that makes sense. Some elementary, middle school, high school people, yeah. Yeah, I was surprised by the number, to be frank.
I know you're busy, but,
But, where's the but?
and I respect all the work you do,
But,
and,
And,
not
there you
but,
go.
and, when it comes to deciding from the pool of candidates, when we aren't, totally solid on the job description yet, how is that decision gonna come from the hiring group, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Just know, is it gonna be kind of who walks in the door and take their skills, or?
we have, we're interviewing 6 and 5, I believe. 6 in one category, 5 in the other. There are some other people that could be secondary, but right now these clearly would be the top candidates. So much has to do with the interview itself. Some of these people will be able to, they've got some experiences that are gonna be a little bit fluid. I think of all the candidates we're interviewing, one person has some elementary experience, everyone else is secondary.
Sure.
And I think the vast majority, if not all, have secondary experience, except for that one. But I'm expecting that they'll be able to be fluid in terms of meeting the needs. In general, the Dean of Students position, it's fairly, traditional. It's working with students, student issues. It's attendance, it's discipline, it's working in conjunction with the high school principal, with Liz. It's working with, oftentimes, police. And then it's working with our school counselor and all of the issues that come forward. I would say a dean of position, school, I'm talking about secondary, a dean, whether it be the dean or an athletic director and/or a associate principal, although the activities director would be different. Generally speaking, they're the same positions in all schools, depending on the size of schools, and then the individual needs or interests of the school district, how they would make that position unique. So it's really having the qualifications in the activities position in athletics. What's your background in activities, management, and athletics? And in the dean position, it's what's your experience working with kids and building relationships with kids. That's what we're looking for. It's awful, it's much like a math teacher. We know that they're going to be teaching algebra. We're not asking about algebra, we're getting the bigger picture.
Sure.
And a lot has to do with personality and whether or not in fit, is that the person that's the right fit? And that's as important as anything.
I have 2 more questions. How's Michelle baking into this process?
Michelle screened, I screened, and Liz screened. I met with Liz, and then we took our top candidates, printed them, shared those with Michelle. Michelle's screened all of them. Then I shared the printed ones with Bart. And then last week got a little bit busy for us, so Michelle and I, after I met with Liz, and Barb met on the activities position, and then we Zoomed today for the dean position, literally at 3 o'clock. And so I'll forward those to Liz, and then...
and those meetings were essentially based on who they know and Michelle's network
Right.
of like, well, I know so-and-so that works there, I'll call them and see, and have you heard anything through the grapevine?
I can say out of 11 candidates between the original screen that saw everything, Liz, I, and Michelle, we're about 90% in terms of the same people. There would have been 1 or 2 on each pile that we looked at, but I'm not sure the original pile changed. And then I'll send all this information then tomorrow to Bev to schedule. And when we sent it out, we let people know that, you know, the interview would be, you know, stay tuned shortly thereafter, so it shouldn't be a surprise.
Are they going to be both administrative positions?
Say that again.
Are they going to be administrative positions officially?
Maybe he's a dean of students and a director of athletic activities and athletics,
Okay.
And you know, when I was in Point, we had 3 contracts. We had an administrative contract, we had a teacher contract, and we had a support contract, and that was in the middle of, in between. And here you have a manager. Deb, do you have a contract? You should know this.
Do I?
Manager, yeah.
Yes, I'm on one, and I don't have one with me, if that's.
No, so we have
Pull it
that.
out of my pocket here, I don't know.
There's that position in the middle that it's not an administrator, it's not a teacher contract, it's a support staff, so we would call it. And there would be people that were just in between.
Yeah.
And typically those people don't supervise them.
Right.
That would be a difference.
We do have a professional one that we haven't had in use for a few years that maybe we could look at too.
So that's not uncommon.
Are you foreseeing them being a part of like these discussions? Certainly Kendra shared a lot about the athletic side and.
Well, that'll depend a whole lot on Michelle next year. But typically, they would join administrator meetings as needed.
So I've
You
been
know,
kinda
when
saying-
there are issues that we're gonna talk, that would involve them, they would be at the administrative meetings, and then they certainly would
Right.
report out here to
So
them.
I've been saying, to some degree, they're a part of the administrative team in a collaborative effort sense. Obviously, sans an administrative license, they're not an administrator, but
Right.
certainly they're.
Because on the teaching, on the dean, we put down as a requirement a DPI license, not an administrative license. Now, that said, 3/4 of the people that applied have an administrative license. And the dean position, the activities position, we did not require a DPI license. Now, that said, I think everybody out of the 22, but one did have,
Wow,
which I'm really not surprised at.
sure.
Good to know.
No. Yeah,
Yeah.
Did you think of another one?
not on that. Not on that. I was just going to ask, a few weeks ago, we talked about the crisis response plan. And again, I know that so much stuff has been happening, but still think it'd be useful for us to have a longer discussion about thoughts that you and Liz and Dale have about, and Kelly too, about the response and things we could change.
Well, and Greg was the safety director in Toma, and we have had some conversations on that. Conversations to set the stage for what this is gonna look like as we move forward, is a good idea. That might even be a workshop, though. That would take prep time on our
Right.
And that's also updating policy as far as.
part. Yeah.
It's just top of my mind still, and I know that you have a million things every day, but it feels important, so.
Dylan's saying put it at the top of.
Not a million.
No, I'm just 1 of 7. I'm 1 of 7.
Put it out there. All right, anything else? All right, thank you, administrators. Moving on to our district business, our area focus tonight is in budget and finance, 5.1, to talk about our defeasance. And so we have Jordan from Baird here, understanding is gonna go through. What?
This is odd.
This is different.
The fees and
Seasons is a down for
7.
Jordan, sorry, I was really
That's
trying to
all
move you up.
I'm a little surprised.
Sorry, I gotta stick around a little longer. Derek. So you can discuss
So I attached the single audit. This is kind of the final piece where our auditors are required to programmatically audit any federal dollars and state-specific dollars on certain programs if we have over $750,000 of federal revenues in a fiscal year, which we did. So this is just the audit report that comes in kind of response to that. We passed with flying colors, no findings except, I believe it was the segregation of duties, which I want to say 375 out of 421 districts get that statewide. So we're not alone. It's kind of a culmination of having a fiscally responsible small business office for a smaller school district. You really can't get around it. And even if you had a bigger one, it's very tough to get around it anyway, because there's so many things they say. You have to have 3 levels of approval, or if this person does this person can't touch it, and it's just not fiscally responsible to kind of clear that finding.
Every school district I've worked at has had this finding in it.
Me too.
Other than that, our audit went very well. The auditors, I believe, were happy. If not, they didn't tell me to my face. I haven't heard anything bad, and they continue to talk to us and be responsive, and I think appreciated our work. So I applaud everybody that had to contribute to the audit or that I had to ask audit questions about. And so it's a good passing grade for this year, and we're looking forward to getting another one next year, hopefully.
Great. Any questions?
We have 2 levels of approval then?
It depends on what it is. There's certain dollar thresholds where it goes through the principal, then it goes through me, and then it also goes to Craig. And so usually there's 3 on every purchase we make, our requisition that goes through, but other things, there's more. So i.e. a maintenance project that has to come to the board for approval.
Sure.
So at that point, there'd be 4.
And technically, to a certain degree, you guys are approving budgets at the start of the school year too, at the annual meeting, and then you set the levy as well.
Great.
Thanks for your.
Yes, thank you for knowing what you're doing.
Right.
Oh, awesome. All right, moving on, 6.1. We've had 2 readings on this, bringing it back for a vote now. Do I have a motion to approve the board policy updates attached?
So moved. Second.
Our Neola representative is the one that's been working with Craig on this for several months. Any final comments on any of those? Okay, Carrie done? Mary Beth? Mike?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
Dylan?
Yes.
Angie?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. 7.1, our defeasance discussion. Jordan from Baird is going to take the floor. Derek probably going to add in some information. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, absolutely. Good evening, everyone. I know you discussed this in detail last month, so I'll go over it at a high level, go over the details, and happy to answer any questions. So as a reminder, so when your municipal bonds were issued in 2021, usually when municipal bonds are issued, investors want a certain amount of time before they can be prepaid. It's usually anywhere from 8 to 10 years. So when we issued your bonds in 2021, it was 8 years, so it's a 29 prepayable dates. So 8 years before the bonds can be prepaid. I handed out this illustration here. This is the final illustration for the defeasance. The bottom right corner details where these existing funds are coming from to prepaid debt. And as a reminder, it was this last fall that the district decided to levy additional funds to stabilize and manage your levy and your mill rate. So you have these available funds, $717,000. These funds can only be used to pay referendum debt, right? That's the purpose of the referendum, was to give you the authority to levy for these debt payments. So So while the bonds cannot be prepaid yet, you can still prepay them through this process that's called a cash defeasance, where you have the funds, rather than paying investors directly, you're gonna fund an escrow account, and then the escrow account is gonna make these payments until that call date in 2029. The advantage for you is that in the meantime, they're legally off your books. When you deposit the funds into the escrow account, it's invested. So the earnings are all factored in until that payment date. And not only is it invested, but you're investing at the maximum allowable rate. So because these are tax exempt bonds when they were issued, the IRS says, as you're holding these funds, you cannot earn more on them than what you're paying on the bonds, right? That's called arbitrage. Historically, it's never an issue because short-term interest rates are so low, but you've probably seen in the news, short-term interest rates are actually very high right now, and we're actually in what's called an inverted yield curve, where short-term rates are higher than some long-term rates. So it's an advantage right now because you can earn more. So the maximum amount that you can earn in your escrow is 1.64%, which is much lower than current interest rates for short-term bonds. So applaud yourself that your bonds were issued at probably the lowest interest rates I've seen in all the school districts that I work with. So that your blended rate for your referendum, I believe, was right around 1.8%, which is amazing. So think about that. The bondholders that are holding your bonds are losing money because of inflation. Yeah, be very happy about that. But your escrow can only earn 1.64%, which is the interest rate on the bonds that we are prepaying. So looking at this illustration, there are a lot of detailed numbers here, but right above that number that shows the amount available for defeasance is that savings from the defeasance, that bold number, that $186,613. So that's net of the fees for the transaction, that's net of that deposit to the escrow. And the thing to remember there is that's true, that's savings directly to taxpayers, right? So that's interest that you're not gonna have to levy in the future to repay debt. Any questions?
And just remind me that 186 is for this defeasance this year.
Correct. Yep. So last year you defeased that as well. I do have that in front of me. That was savings of a little over $178,000. Yep. So this is above that, the savings from last year. Yep. So then from here, the transaction will close 2 weeks from now. So 2 weeks, the district will wire the funds to Associated Trust, is the firm that will manage the escrow account. And then from that point on, the district will not have to make payments on these bonds that are being prepaid. And then next year is when the district will start making lower payments based on a lower amount of interest that's needed to be paid.
So in 2029, we just start paying it off. We don't do the escrow system or the
Correct.
defeasance
Yep.
process.
The bonds will be prepayable, so rather than going through this process of funding an escrow account, it would just be simple board action, you approve a resolution. Investors do require a 30-day notice, but you wire funds directly to the investors then. You don't have to do the escrow process.
They're kind of like, please, because they got a 1.8 rate.
Right, yeah, right.
Any other questions?
And then one question that you probably have is that 186 gonna be money in our pocket this next year? No, that's the savings over the life of the loan or the payment schedule, so that's kind of 12,000 per year for the next series of years until we get to that 186 total.
When you think about the trade-off of that, $700,000 in 1 year saves you $12,000 over each year over 20. Well, we have needs in the school every year, that exceed that $12,000, and so part of the referendum is to get us the ability to use these tax dollars better for the folks.
Yeah, so I'll just remind you, this is a completely separate levy though.
Right.
So this is just a levy for referendum debt. These funds, it's not clearing up any capacity for operations.
Right.
But it does help you in terms of your tax levy in future years.
Any other questions? Statement?
All good stuff,
Yeah,
yeah,
this was really helpful.
very.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
thank you. Really appreciate you coming.
Sure.
Okay. Awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you for coming.
Mhm.
And you can leave whenever.
Okay. Yeah.
All right, 9.1, do I have, what?
Two yet.
Yes, you do have to approve the actual resolution.
Okay, my
This is all for now.
goodness. You just lump these together.
7.2.
Do I have a motion to approve the resolution authorizing the transfer of funds, the establishment of an escrow account with respect to and the defeasance of certain of the general obligation refunding bonds series 2021A dated March 10th, 2021?
I'll make a motion.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing done. Mary Beth?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
Dylan?
Yep.
Angie?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. More referendum discussion, 8.1.
Thanks, Jordan.
Thanks,
Yeah.
I put referendum down just to ask if there's any questions that you have after we've had 3 meetings with the community, several meetings, with municipalities. The municipalities generally were well attended, and more than that, just a lot of really good questions. I felt like their support. I think when I first started, going a couple months ago, stating if people could give me a half hour, they should agree that they understand and why we're doing this. Still might not like it, because there's a tax involved, but I think for the most part, people do understand. There has been some questions out on Facebook from time to time, and may have seen them. I know Bev has been responding appropriately and getting information from Greg and Derek and myself in terms of some of the questions, but there's, always the confusion or the intent to confuse. I'm not sure which one. As it relates to the numbers themselves. This is a revenue limit, which is Fund 10, and that makes up the majority of our operations. As it relates to our state aid and our taxes. There's a tremendous amount of numbers out there comparing school districts, just about everything you want to compare. Some people take a look at total spending. Well, total spending is very, very, very different than Fund 10. Fund 10 is what we have the controls on. That is our revenue limit. If you take a look at total costs, there are all types of costs that come in there that are not a part of that specific fund. And so that, number gets elevated, but it gets elevated for everybody too. So, I just caution, people that they're, they make sure they're making the comparisons, appropriately. And the literature that we've put out is very transparent and very accurate. Bev is putting together a postcard that'll be going out shortly, and it is just that, it's just some of the very basic information on there as it relates to the cost of $9 per $100,000 of value, the date itself, and then, vote. Go out and vote. Any questions or comments that you've heard or have of yourself?
Well, the number one comment I hear from municipalities and the groups you go to talk to are, this is the first time I've ever understood it. I think that you are really representing the district well, Craig, and we thank you for that.
Glad we got that recorded.
Right.
You're gonna show up in
4 years from now. No, I think everybody's been super thankful for you to go and go through it and answer all their questions like that, so.
And I appreciate our, I try never to reply to the Facebook things, but I appreciate our community members who get out there and, you know, tell it like it really is. That's great.
Yeah, and I've just been encouraging people to stay engaged throughout the whole year, because I think it's an opportune time for people to become engaged when they're talking about voting yes or no on a referendum. But if you really want to talk about the nitty and gritty of where our budgets and monies go and what an education costs these days and what we're providing our kids in an education, show up at our annual meeting, watch our meetings more regularly, because, you know, just going to a single bus route isn't gonna fix the operational you know, so I think that's been one piece of it, is hopefully people stay connected more often.
I know,
Well,
I
it's
tell
2
people
weeks.
too, it's like,
Yeah.
you know, and it's not just doing that, it's also, you know, going to events at the school. You know, go to a basketball game, go to a football game, go to, you know, one of the plays, do something like that to see what, you know, what the money is being used for, not just, you know, in academics, you know, in all sorts of activities. You know, and hopefully people will kind of understand that, you know, that that's what we're talking about. You know, we're not just talking about academics, we're talking about, you know, all activities, you know, in all shapes and forms.
Well, we're talking about a school that can have 22 students potentially do youth apprenticeship.
Right,
I
absolutely.
mean, could we do that without the support of a local
Right.
referendum?
Yeah,
It'd be a challenge.
definitely.
One question, Craig and Derek and Greg, that I think is an honest question that people still have about it, because we've answered a lot of the questions at this point, is when it comes to operational savings from the capital referendum on specifically utility costs, or maybe even the transportation costs. Folks are still wondering, you know, what that looks like, and I know it's more of a difficult conversation because that was a 2020 or 2021 cost, and now we're a ways out. But I know we've only got 3 weeks left till it, but if the district could produce some sort of information on that, I think people would be thankful, just because I think they're wondering how has that decision come out. So.
That's challenging, not that it's not there. Excuse me, we weren't here. Derek and Greg and I weren't here. And so when we talk about the savings or what was said, what is that, 4 years ago now? Do you guys have any comments on
Well,
that?
I think you can see the savings directly in utilities. I think transportation is gonna be a little more difficult because you went to the 2-tier, you know, not too long ago, so that's gonna change a little thing. And inflation over the last 2 or 3 years, you know, we're at historic highs with inflation. So to go back and look at some of those things will be difficult. I don't think anybody, when you did your operational referendum, would have anticipated the CPI increases to be where they're at currently right now. I know that's a struggle for every school district to keep up with that when it comes to salary and fringes. And certainly insurance costs have not went down. So I think there's some measures out there that you can look at, and those would be very, you know, apples to apples, you know, like looking at utilities. What have utilities done? You know, of course, you're gonna have your highs and lows of what the prices were, but electricity is pretty stable over that period of time, so you can look at that. You know, you could try to a little bit on the transportation, but, you know, again, that's gonna be difficult because you went to the 2 tiers, you know, to compare from one to the other. So, yeah, and I think to Craig's point, to know what was said in the past, you know, we can go look, but it's gonna be difficult, you know. We haven't seen the results of the solar project yet, but that should be up and running here, and we know what the estimates are, and I think they'll be real, so it's just difficult, but.
I've heard some of the same questions. Yes, there would be savings there, the common sense when you put all of your employees on one site, you have fewer people that are traveling, for one thing. But I think the messaging that gets lost was this operation, the savings that would have occurred during the consolidation would not have been the resolve to the revenue limit issue. And I think maybe some people are thinking that, Well, I thought we combined the buildings, so we wouldn't have to go to operational referendum any longer. You know, $3 million, $3.2 million. You know, our budget's 11 million. This, our last referendum was 2.2, budget was 11. My quick math is, you know, close to 10%, a little over. You didn't save 10% when you consolidated. Savings, yes, but the whole issue that we're talking about, it's the revenue limit of, set by the state, and it's a combination of property taxes and state aid, and that's our limit. Anything more and above, we have to ask the public, and yes, the consolidation certainly helps, along with a lot of other things that can help. The solar system, solar panels that were put in, the solar system, the solar panels that were put in, you know, they weren't part of the original referendum plan, but now they are in it. That is going to help out with utilities as time goes on. But the real issue with the revenue limit is the state aid and whether or not state aid increases or a change to the formula occurs. Until that would happen, we're still going to have a shortfall in operations like most schools across the state.
And I would emphasize cost of living increases across the board for non-salary and salary, and again, going to that CPI increases that every school district has seen and struggled with. You know, the difference between a 1% and 2% increase is pretty significant when you look at, you know, 75% of your budget or more is made up of salaries. So that's just a fact of life that nobody could have anticipated that coming down.
Well, and I think that's the
Like it
problem
has.
is that those projected savings were based on not consolidated and the next year were consolidated. So I remember we talked, you know, X amount savings in this to the next year, but right, we're already fast forward 3 years and you don't have those future projections of CPI going to 8%
Right.
and record inflation, fuel charging, you know, and so it's like all of a sudden, in a blink of an eye in 3 years, that's been consumed and adopted. I mean, and so it's kind of, it's not gone, but it helped buffer some of the costs that we would have just had to ask more, possibly. But you make a decision and a projection based on what's in the now, not knowing what can change in such a drastic amount of time. Anything else?
Oh, April 2nd, 3 weeks from tomorrow.
Anything else? Okay.
No, thank you for, you know, I appreciate, I know you guys always talk about it, you think about it, but saying it so people can watch it on the video if they take the time to, it helps.
We'll do some more thinking about it. It'd just be
Thank you.
Okay, moving on, 9.1. Did I get it right? No, just kidding. A very excited motion to approve a donation from Base Camp to the Vanguard Racing Team for $1,000. Do I have a motion?
Second.
Thank you, Mary Beth and Base Camp.
Well, you know, Mr. Hopper just reinforced that my love of this school, and there's something for everybody in this school. So I was just really impressed with what the kids have done, so it was wonderful.
Awesome.
Outstanding.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you'll have to email seeing where your purple is gonna fit in. Car, purple. Awesome. Well, hearing done. Mary Beth, how would you like to vote? Yes. Mike? Matt?
Yes.
Dylan?
Yes.
Angie?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. Thank you again. Do I have a motion to combine 10.1 and 10.2?
So moved.
Second.
Sad to see Mary Jo go, but
Mary
thank
Jo.
you for everything she, never say never, she will be back.
Right.
Mary Jo, we know you'll be back, it's fine.
Dylan can help me.
Yeah, we'll bring in both sides of the family.
Yeah, exactly. And a welcome to Brent, who will be coming along and coaching our golf team this year. Any questions? All right, Mary Beth?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
Dylan?
Yes.
Angie?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. Future meeting dates. We are not going to have a meeting on March 25th during spring break.
April 7th is the student council thing, right?
Sunday, April 7th, yep, is the student council event. And then we are looking either the 8th or the 22nd in holding our employee relations meet and greet, meet and confer with our staff. And previously, we started at 5 and had some food and appetizers, kind of made it. Do you have a preference if it's the 1st or 2nd of April?
I would probably go more towards the
The
second,
second,
because
yeah.
without having a meeting in March, I think you might
Yeah.
have more to do on
Okay,
the first
so let's look at the 22nd, starting at 5.
Of April.
Yep. That's doable. If not, that's okay, just come at 6 when you can. And that should do it there. So, I'll take a roll call to adjourn to executive session pursuant to Wisconsin statutes 19.85, parent 1, parent C, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility. After the executive session is completed, the board will reconvene to public session.
Cindy Bettin, Mary Beth Shaw, Barb Stotts.
Yes.
Mike Wagner.
Yes.
Matt Crowe.
Yes.
Ellen Homenstein.
Yep.
And Piers Wong.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
You guys from?